Welcome to a new edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. On this episode, we talk with CEO and speaker Jesse Frye. He is a devoted father of four and a husband to his wife, Lindsay, a social worker who works with adults with intellectual disabilities. He's the CEO of TheBusinessBlueprint and ScaleLegal. He's on a mission to help 5K service-based businesses take their client experiences to the next level. Jesse has extensive experience assisting and guiding 100-plus law firms, tech firms, and other businesses across the United States, Canada, Germany, Australia, and India. He's got a great story. Enjoy.
Thanks for taking a minute out today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
So I'm just going to hop right in here. And the first thing that I want to get to before we get to your life as a CEO and a strategist and a speaker is to ask about the last 3 years has affected us all in a different way with living through a pandemic. And I'm wondering how you survived COVID and how it's changed the way that not only you live your life, but the way that you conduct business now.
That's a great question, Joe. I'm sure so many of us have gone through a similar experience, yet at the same time different. Mine, actually, I'd say even at the beginning of the pandemic, I was actually, I was working as a marketing executive for a company out of the Bay Area. And on March 16th, they laid off 200 of 250 of the 250 employees. So it put me in a place, I didn't get laid off, but I was obviously one of the 50 left behind, but it made me really reevaluate my goals and my dreams. I was burnt out after pretty much a short period of time. And then in November, I decided to call it quits as a marketing executive and really go out and really tackle, entrepreneurship on my own. And I selected coaching because I love helping people. So I think making that drastic change in my life was important. That's at least from the business perspective. And, how did I survive? You asked that question. I survived by just surrounding myself by my wife and my children and finding ways to go outside when they would allow us, when they weren't blocking off the entrances to trails and parks, and just being outside. And I continue to do that today.
Yeah, I did the same thing with my kids. Yeah, the name of the game was getting out in the fresh air. So I want to get to the essence of what you do on a daily basis. And to do that, I'm going to put you hypothetically in front of a bunch of third graders at a career day at a grade school. One of the kids looks up and says, one of the kids asks you, what do you do for a living? How do you answer them?
Wow, third graders. I think the way that I answer it is quite simply, we all buy products, right? Whether we go to the grocery store and we buy milk or eggs with our parents, or whether we go to the doctors and we get our checkup from our physician, we all have to buy products and services. And as we go through that buying experience, whether it's buying the eggs from the grocery store or going to our doctor or a dentist, there is a client or a customer experience. And many times throughout that customer experience, there are frictions or problems that come up, and it makes it harder for us to actually get our teeth done, such as maybe our parents have to make an appointment with the doctor and they have to call and get a hold of somebody, and it's painful at times. My job is to help the doctor or the dentist or the store that's providing a service to people, helping them figure out how they can make that experience better so that people want to come back. And even though sometimes nobody wants to come back to the doctor or the dentist, the reality is we have to. So I help them figure out how to make it much easier for you and your parents to go through that process.
So what was your dream when you were in the third grade or when you were a kid? What did you want to be when you grew up?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I think for me, I grew up in a small town in western Pennsylvania outside of Pittsburgh, and my grandfather, father, they were both coal miners. The one thing I knew I didn't want to do is be a coal miner because I saw what they were experiencing at the time. I don't know. I think it was probably something related to helping people. And I didn't really realize that I was interested in business until much older in my life. But I always wanted to help people at some level and to solve problems. I've always been a problem solver. I was the kid that always, tried to figure out how to fix something or make something cooler. If we had like a fort, it was always figuring out how to make that fort cooler. So I think if I look back at my third grade person, it was probably being a fixer. And that's probably, if you look at a client experience coach, that's essentially what I'm doing is I'm helping people fix their client and customer experiences.
So let's dig a little deeper into that childhood in Pennsylvania. And, what were some of the seeds that were planted into you to grow in to who you are, to become who you are today?
I go back to really my grandfather. I spent a lot of time with him. They lived literally next door. There was a path, path in the grass between our house and their house because we spent so much time going to and fro. I think it comes back to when my grandfather, during the summer, would take me on Meals on Wheels routes with him when he would deliver Meals on Wheels. And later in my life, I actually sat on the board of directors for Meals on Wheels. And through the pandemic, I delivered Meals on Wheels because we didn't have, a lot of people didn't want to go out and actually deliver. They were afraid to deliver. So I look at that experience. I also look at an experience whenever my grandfather, he was also part of Habitat to Humanity. There was a town in Ohio, eastern Ohio, that got devastated due to flooding. The river completely took out, all these homes. And I went down with a group of other teenagers with my grandfather and other adults from our community, and we went down and helped rebuild people's homes, shovel mud out of their basements. So if I look back to those times, my father, my grandfather, and a lot of the people within my life volunteered a lot. And many of my cousins that were older than me were in the volunteer fire department. So we spent a lot of time at the volunteer fire department in our small town. So I think those situations probably framed that, seed to really want to help people.
Talk to me a little bit about what motivates and pulls you through a day. We all have these things that we want to do and accomplish and be, but what is it for you ultimately that drives you through a day?
I mean, obviously having a family drives me through that day. I have 4 children, and obviously my wife, she's a social worker, so we're driven by our family. But I think at the same sense, that only motivates us and drives us so far in our day. But I think helping people, having conversations. I talk to a lot of small and medium-sized business owners every single day, working through the challenges that they're having within their businesses, and knowing that I'm making an impact, I think is what's important to me. When I was in the marketing space for big tech and other companies, financial companies, it was mostly financial and big tech, I never really woke up every day thinking, what is the impact I'm making? But when I'm helping small and medium-sized business owners, and I see the actual change that happens, or I see the growth that they make over a year time frame, I think that gets me going, and I know that I'm making a difference because I can see it with my own eyes.
When you get to the end of that proverbial day and you look back, tell me how you quantify a really good day for you.
I don't know if I've ever honestly thought about how I quantify a really good day. I think it's quantified really by just knowing that I had good conversations with people, knowing that it was a positive experience for them, it was a positive experience for me, that there was incremental progress made. I believe in the whole model of fail fast, fail small, and fail often. And that mantra, that statement of failing fast, failing false, failing often is really about the lessons that we learn. So as long as I can take away a lesson that I learned, but also making sure that the people I touch every day in their businesses, that they have learned and gained something of value from it, I think that in itself, if I can do that and I know I can walk away and feel good about it, that to me is a good enough day for me.
So everyone out there, we all learn from things in our lives, we acquire wisdom. And I'm curious, if you had a dream tonight, you ran in to the 20-something-year-old version of yourself, and you could give that version of you a piece of advice based on the wisdom you've gained and the things that you've experienced in your life so far, what would you tell your younger version?
I think if I look back at that 20-some-year-old, I was getting out of the Coast Guard. I served in the U.S. Coast Guard, and I really didn't know what I wanted to do at that point, and I was worried about having it all planned out. That was the thing, and I see it, even, my own children, right? They're teenagers, and they've got everything in their mind, like they've got to have everything planned out. And the piece of wisdom that I would give any 20-plus-year-old is you don't have to have a plan for like long term. You just need to have a direction. And I always give that same advice to a lot of my coaching clients. I said it's important for you to know where you're starting. So I give the analogy of flying a plane. When a plane takes off from New York and it's flying to Los Angeles, we know that we're taking off from New York and we want to get to LA, but we don't necessarily know what's going to come along that journey. There could be storms, there could be rain, there could be turbulence, there could be mechanical problems. You never know what you're going to run into. You don't know if you're going to go to the north or if you're going to go to the south, but you know you're going to end up in LA. And I say you just need to have some sort of direction, some sort of goal, but you don't need to have every part of the journey planned out. And if you try to, you're going to be disappointed often because you're going to set expectations for yourself. And, it's better to just have that plan and say, I'm going to kind of go along the way and know that that's my destination. That's where I want to be. But I know that things are going to change, and to be adaptable to that change as you go along. And I think that's where a lot of people struggle. People aren't adaptable, and when things come along, they get frustrated by it. And, when a business owner is working or, a student or an athlete and something doesn't go their way, everybody gets frustrated because it wasn't part of that plan. But if you just say, is it really getting me to my goal, and did I learn something from whatever didn't go well, I think is the advice that I would give my 20-plus-year-old person.
So what are you the proudest of that you've done in your life so far?
Man, there's so many great questions, Joe. Honestly, I think it's being a good father. I certainly am proud of my time in the military. I'm proud of my time as a business owner. I'm proud of my, getting an MBA. I was the first person in my family to get that. But if I really look at those are all, again, they're just like chess pieces on the board. You move them forward and some are taken away and you kind of make progress. But the reality is that my children can look at me and say that my father was successful. He worked hard. He was a good person. He took care of us. He did things for the community. He did, good things for other people. So I think if like my day ended today and I never saw another day moving forward, I would feel good that I, set them up for success and I gave them a good example.
So everyone out there has a perception of you, your family, your friends, your clients, colleagues, but ultimately you live your life. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I'm a fun, good person, hardworking, creative, problem solver. I'm comfortable with the human that I have become. Certainly, like everyone else, we've made mistakes in our life. But I'm happy with where I am. I have goals and aspirations that are bigger than where I'm at now. And, I constantly say, what is that goal and what is the thing I can do today to get there? Again, I think if I didn't wake up tomorrow morning, I would look at myself and say, like if I'm looking above myself, I would say, he was a good person and he was kind, respectful, and, was a good friend, was a good husband. Those are the things that matter to me the most.
That's a great answer. Hey, Jesse, if anyone out there wants to learn more about you, your services, your history, anything pertaining to you and your world, where is the best place for them to go?
The best place to go is www, or just, if you just put in your browser, coach.jesse, Jesse, middle initial J, FRYE.com. So coach.jessejfrye.com. They can call me, they can, book a meeting with me, or just learn about me and learn what I do every day. That's the easiest way.
Right on, Jesse Frye. Godspeed. Thank you for opening up. I appreciate your time and candor, and good luck with everything.
Thanks, Joe. I appreciate your time as well. Thanks so much for having me on.
Thanks for tuning in to another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we cover the world of art, literature, business, spirituality, music, and more from around the globe. If you want to hear more interviews, visit the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino channel on YouTube. You can also find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.